When somebody sits down with me for the first time, they usually have one of three questions bouncing around in their head. Sometimes it's all three. Am I on track? Am I missing something? Sometimes it's just, am I even crazy for thinking about this? I'm Nick Morrison, a certified financial planner, usually working with folks in their 50s and 60s trying to figure out retirement. Today, I want to walk you through how I think about these questions, because the answer often involves more than just the numbers. And sometimes what is really on people's mind is different than what they're asking. Before I get into it, this is educational content, not personalized advice. Your situation will be different, but this should provide a helpful framework to think through your situation. The question that I hear most commonly is, am I on track? Do I have enough? And my answer is usually, I don't know. It depends on what okay means to you. When somebody asks me this, they're often comparing themselves to some number they've seen online, some arbitrary $1, $2, $3 million. But here's the problem. I've sat across the table with somebody that had $500,000 saved, and they were in great shape. I've also sat across the table with somebody that had $5 million saved, and they were worried sick. It all depends on what you're using the money for. What are you trying to accomplish? So the first thing I have to understand is, what do you actually want? And this is where I often hear something vague. I just want to live within my means. I don't want to do anything crazy. Okay, but that's not very definitive. What does that actually mean in dollars? Once we get specific about what you're trying to accomplish, then we can make real progress figuring out if you're on track. Question number 2, am I making a mistake? Now this one's interesting. The people that often ask are savvy, well-informed, and have done a lot of things right to get where they're at. But they also understand that the landscape has gotten more complicated. Tax laws change, Social Security is nuanced, and Medicare is filled with tiny gotchas. What I've observed is those with 7, 10, even more saved are often more concerned about making a mistake than those with 1.5 or 2 million saved. Why? Because they're not going to run out of money. That's not the concern. They're worried about missing something key, leaving money on the table, paying more in taxes than they need to. So what mistakes do I actually see? First, tax diversification problems. This is great when you're getting pre-tax benefits during your working years, but they're not thinking about what it's going to look like when they take it all out. Second, investments that don't match their timeline. They know they should take some risk off the table, but they struggle actually doing it. Third, accounts everywhere with no coordination. Different accounts at different places, none of it working together. It's all a bit duct taped. Fourth, action with no strategy. They're doing things, taking a bit of advice here, a good tidbit over here, but there's no coordination, there's no mapping. What is it that you want, and how do you know that the actions you're taking are the best way to get that? Question 3, am I crazy? Now, this one often doesn't get said out loud, but it is what's going on underneath the surface. Am I crazy for wanting to give up a job that's paying $500,000 a year? Am I crazy for wanting to retire at 58 when my peers are working into their mid-60s? What they're really asking for is permission. That what they really want is feasible. And here's what I've learned. Sometimes people are optimizing for the wrong thing based on what they're saying is important. You tell me that you want to spend more time with your family. You tell me you want to get healthier. You tell me you want to travel, but what you're still optimizing for is money. You're working 40, 60-hour weeks, grinding through a job that's getting in the way of what you want. And you've reached a point that financially you have more than enough. So at some point I have to ask, why? Life is not always about accumulating more money. Money is designed to be a tool to make your life better. It may have made sense early in your career to trade your time for money, but at some point that's no longer serving you. You're giving up valuable time that you can't get back for potentially the wrong reasons. A lot of the times, once we look at the numbers, compare trade-offs, run scenarios, you realize you have much more freedom than you thought. They just needed somebody to show them the math and say, yes, you can do this. So those are the 3 questions. Am I on track? Let's define what really matters to you, and then we can make sure you're heading in the right direction. Am I making a mistake? Let's take the time to review the details and make sure that you're not leaving money on the table. Am I crazy? Let's make sure that you're optimizing for what really matters to you and not what you think you're supposed to want. Most people come in with one of those. Many people come in with all three. I use this cockpit analogy all the time. So you're looking at the cockpit, there's 50 or so buttons and levers, but only 2 or 3 really matter for where you're trying to go. But you're unsure which ones matter the most. The pilot does. It's my job to say, you're going to be okay. Here's why. And here are the 2 or 3 things that matter most to your situation. If this gave you a framework for thinking through where you are, hit the subscribe button. I share videos to help people feel more confident about their retirement. I aim to connect their choices with their priorities so that your wealth supports the life you want to live.